right. I almost forgot where the camera was. Hello. Welcome to the second live stream on the Money Pit channel. Very excited to be with you here today. I just need to do a quick check here, make sure everything is up and running, and it is in fact, so I am excited about that. I want to talk with you today about the most tragic woodworking story ever told. And this is not clickbait. I believe that it might be the saddest story that you hear all day, possibly your whole life. I was just talking to my wife about it yesterday, day before, or whatever. And I was saying, you know, I don't even know how I got through all of that. Thank you, Don and Sharon. Is it Fralick or Fralick? I don't remember. I know you are here from the KG Tropicals channel, but I know we've established that before, but I don't remember how to pronounce that. I don't like saying people's names wrong. And thank you, Leo, for giving me the audio video. All good. Check. I have a history of technical problems. So, but anyway, I was talking to my wife about it and I was like, I don't know how I got through all that. That was pretty rough. And I said to her, Fralick. So, okay, gotcha. At least I believe that's what you mean by that. I'm going to say Fralick, and I hope I'm saying it properly. I'm going to be talking more about you in just one second here, but I was telling her, I don't know how detailed I want to go in this. And she was like, well, if you want people to have the full context of what, you know, what all happened back then, you really ought to go into detail about it. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. I'm going to try to be brief, but you know, we're talking about something that is almost a 20-year, no, it's more than that, 25, 30 years worth of my history when it comes to woodworking, not just me. I mean, who cares about all of that? But my woodworking journey, that's what I want to talk about today. And again, I wish that the YouTube editor would allow me to go into the live stream and actually put on screen right here text of the time, like the timestamp of when I actually get to that part of the story, that most devastating thing ever part of the story. I don't think the YouTube editor will allow me to do that. So what I will do once this goes live or not goes live, but goes on replay, I'll put it in the pinned comment, the timestamp of just that part. If you don't want to hear all of the details that build up to that, I understand. We all don't have, you know, all that much time to commit to something like that. So you want to just get to the good part or the really sad part, go to that time there. But I think it's important, as my wife said, to understand the true context of why it was such a devastating thing that happened to me. You know, you'll have a good understanding of it if you listen to the whole thing. But before I get into that, I wanted to shout out, as I just alluded to, Don and Sharon Fralick. I said Dan because you got the hard A in my head now. They are the very first channel members on this Money Pit channel. I turned on channel memberships last week on like Wednesday or maybe even Thursday. And within like an hour, Don and Sharon were our first channel members. Thank you so much for that. I hadn't even announced it or anything yet, and they jumped in there and did that. There can only be one first, Don and Sharon. Y'all are it. So we had our first super chat in last week's live stream. Just got our second one. Thank you, Joe. And now we have our first channel member. So it's very cool. I did want to make anyone that's watching this aware, and I'm committing to this right now, and it'll never not be a thing. I suppose it could become a really good problem to have, and I could not be able to follow this, but my intention is Absolutely, without exception, 100% of the money that is generated by our channel memberships is going into future projects on this channel. That's a guarantee. Now, the reason why I said that could be, it would be a really good problem to have, but I suppose if we end up getting 30,000 channel members, might be too much money to spend on the house. That would be a really good problem to figure out what to do there with all of that. But I don't foresee that happening. It would be ridiculous to think that would happen. What am I, Mr. Beast? Come on. But it doesn't matter if it's only Don and Sharon, or if we end up with a nice big community of channel members. All of that revenue is going to go to future projects on this house. My goal is to bring this house back to its original glory, to bring it into something that, should be featured in magazines and stuff like that. And that's an extraordinarily expensive endeavor. So I'm not asking for anybody to do anything like that. But if you do that, understand that's where that money is going. And I'm extraordinarily thankful for anyone that does that, along with Finsanity Aquatics. Joe Provenzano, big supporter of both of our channels now. $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much for that, Joe. But let's get into this story. It has a lot of twists and turns. It's a lot of years in this story. Like I said, I'm gonna do my best to try to be brief, but I'm seeing a lot of names in here right now, like Leo and Joe and Real Madrid fan. And of course, Don and Sharon. Y'all know I'm never brief about anything. So it's going to be a challenge, but I'm going to try. Can you only become a member from laptop or not iPhone? No, you can become a member anywhere. Whatever you want to use. Just the little join button right below me. It's right there next to the subscribe button, which I know you're already subscribed, Joe. So, to truly get to the beginnings of my obsession with not only woodworking, but also, what we call now DIY. No, it wasn't a DIY movement back in the early 90s, and people didn't call it DIY. It was just, you did your own stuff to your house, whatever it was that you needed done. I grew up in a household. I was born in 1974. I'm not giving you my whole life history here, but when I was young, I watched my father. I'd never call him my father, my dad. I watched him not call a guy. What do I mean by that? So many people, and I don't fault people for this. Not everybody knows how to do everything, but so many people have a list of their guys. And, these days we got to be correct. And, could certainly be women on that list too. But, plumbers, painters, HVAC guys, electricians, these are industries that are dominated by men. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's what it is. And so, you refer to it as, I got a guy. I got a painter guy. I got a guy that does my roofing. I got a guy that does my landscaping. Y'all know what I'm saying. Well, my father never called a guy. I don't think I ever, in the 23 years that I knew him, I don't think I ever saw him call a guy. He built our house. I was only 2, so I don't remember that. And it was a very, very nice house. 14894 Courage Drive, Woodbridge, Virginia. If you want to Google map that house, you can barely see it from Google Maps because there's a lot of trees around it. My dad built that house. And so if something went wrong with the house, whether it was a plumbing leak or it was something was crooked and needed to be straightened out, or something was broke and needed to be fixed, my dad just did it. And I watched him do it. That's the lifestyle I grew up in. So that kind of, I inherited that from him. My brother, the exact same way. I'm not going to call a guy or a girl unless it's something that's dangerous, or you know, could burn my house down, which I guess that would qualify as dangerous. There are very few things that I will call a guy for. I don't like messing with electrical. And I do not touch roofs, particularly the roof on this house. It's a very steep pitch and it's way up there. I'm scared of that. I don't like that. So if I ever get the roof replaced on this house, which is on that list of things that I'd like to do, I'm calling a guy for that. And I will not apologize for that. But anyway, what I'm getting at is my dad definitely left an impression on me that, you know, you got something that needs to be done, you do it. You don't call a guy. Again, not ridiculing anybody who does call a guy. I'm just saying that's not how I was brought up. My dad's best friend growing up is another guy. He is still with us to this day. I believe he is approaching 80. His name is Richard Hillegas. There's no way in the world that he's watching this right now. But if he was to watch this, he would probably be surprised to hear of how he influenced me. Again, my dad's best friend. So I practically grew up with this man and his children. They were close in age to me. And so they were basically family. He was a woodworker. He had a shop in his backyard. They have since moved to a different house. But growing up, when they lived down the street, he had a really cool shop in his backyard. Kind of resembled the New Yankee Workshop. I don't think he did that on purpose, but a small shop, probably the size of a 1.5 car garage in his backyard. But that's not the coolest thing. The coolest thing was he was also a shop teacher. That's what he did for a living. And I remember he taught middle school shop at Graham Park Middle School in Triangle, Virginia, which is the middle school that I went to. And I remember getting my schedule in 7th grade and I had Mr. Hillegas for shop. And I was like, yes, that's almost like a guaranteed A. I think he gave me a B, but still, that was amazing. I always looked up to him. He would bring gifts that he made to my parents. He made a mailbox for my parents this one year, which was like this beautiful barn mailbox. And then some idiot drove by and put an M80 in it and blew it up. It was very sad, but he would build little things and give them to my parents as gifts. Have you ever seen those reindeer that people can make out of like 3 pieces of plywood, and then you slide the 3 pieces together and it stands up in your yard and it's a reindeer? You paint them white and it's really cute. He made those for my parents one year. And I just always thought that was so cool. Like, you're making these things. First of all, it's really cool that you know how to make that kind of stuff. But then also you're giving that as gifts. Like, that's awesome. How cool is that? And this is what I grew up exposed to. And so it had a massive influence on me, and it had a massive influence on me at an early age. I didn't realize that this was happening, but when I look back on it now, I realize now, like, oh, that's totally why I got into this stuff. And another thing that these days, you'd probably have Child Protective Services called on you if you did something like this. But my dad owned a business. He was a air conditioning and heating man. He went to people's houses and fixed their air conditioning and heating, but he also had another side of his business. I think at its peak, he had like 20 employees, where his business would go to new homes that are being constructed and install the HVAC systems in those. Well, when I was like 13, 14, 15, 16, when school ended in the summertime, it wasn't like, you're not going to lay around all day. What do you think you're going to do? Sleep till 11? No, you're coming to work. And so in the summertime, it was go to work for dad. That's just what it was. And so I grew up in the summertime on construction sites. And that's, I believe, what drew me to the show, This Old House. I talked about it last week. This Old House had a massive influence on me. I loved that show, and I think I connected with it because I was familiar. It was all familiar to me. I knew what it was like to have to walk through the dirt and go over the gravel to get into the door of the house. And that was all the stuff that was very familiar to me. And so it was just natural to me to be into that kind of stuff. But I didn't really do any of that kind of stuff like construction and big woodworking stuff. I didn't do a whole lot of it until my ex-wife and I bought our first place. Oh man, I should remember. The 34? Oh man, shame on me. I forget the address. This is the first house I ever bought. We bought a townhouse in Stafford, Virginia that had a completely unfinished basement. The first big project I did, first big boy project, was finishing that basement. And that was a massive project. It was the biggest thing I had ever done at the time. This is where my friends that are here from the KG Tropicals channel have heard me talk about so many times how I built two 29-gallon aquariums into the wall. That's the basement that I did that on. I did that when I was like 20. I finished that basement. I built two aquariums into the wall. That got me started on two hobbies: woodworking and construction, home renovation type stuff, and aquariums. Two things that I'm still completely obsessed over to this day, a lot of years later. I don't do math on live streams because it always ends up being wrong. But that was really the first major project I ever did. And then we abruptly moved out of that house in 1997 when my father passed away. Very short version of the story. Right after my dad died, he died very suddenly. My mom was like, hey, y'all are not in the best position financially. She was right. We did dumb things that kids do and bought a bunch of furniture and bought a bunch of dumb stuff on credit. We made all those mistakes. And, we were kind of buried in debt a little bit. She was like, she's my mom. She knew. She's like, y'all are not in the best position financially. I've never lived alone, 34 years. So I got this big old house. Your dad's gone. Why don't you all come stay with me for a bit, get yourself out of the hole, and then you can move on. And that's exactly what we did. And so didn't really do a whole lot of woodworking or construction or whatever while I was living in my mom's house. But we were there from late 97 to late 98 when we found out my ex was pregnant. And that's when I was like, all right, I'm not living at mommy's house when I got a baby on the way. So we got a place in Dale City, Virginia. Again, I don't remember the address. Shame on me. Carden Place is the name of the street, but I do not remember the house number. It was another townhouse. We just rented it. It had a small utility room in the basement. And this is when I got started with actual woodworking because I finally had a place to do it. There was a little utility room. And when I say little, it was probably smaller than this room I'm sitting in right now. And it had the heat pump in it. It had a water heater in it, but I also put a bunch of tools in it. And I started my woodworking journey right there, 1998, in that little utility room. My mother, when we were moving into that house, moving out of my mom's house and into that house, she was like, your dad had all these tools. There's nothing I'm ever going to be able to do with them. I don't know what those things are or what they do. You want to talk with your brother, you guys split those tools up however you want them. Take whatever is out there. I don't care. I'm not going to do anything with it. My dad did not have a lot as far as woodworking goes, but he had a lot of things that you'd want around the house if you're doing DIY projects, like a miter saw, circular saw, jigsaw, things like that, drills, stuff like that. There were not the small impact drivers then. You just basically had a screw gun. That's what we called them. Just a drill, basically. He had a bunch of those because of his business. So that's what I started out with back then. But then my father-in-law, who was a man that I greatly admired, we lost him a couple years ago, did 20 years in the Army and 20 years in the Navy, served in Korea, Vietnam. This man was a highly decorated individual. Lost him at 87. He had a real good life. Louis Fiorentino was his name, and I idolized that man. He said back then in 1998, he said, well, if you're getting into woodworking, I've got a bunch of tools in my shed that I'm never going to use again. You can go out there, whatever's in there, whatever you want, take it. I'm like, what? So from him, I got a small benchtop drill press, a small benchtop bandsaw, and a bunch of other stuff. Again, we're talking about something that was so long ago. I can't recall exactly what it was, but I remember vividly the little Craftsman bandsaw and the little Craftsman drill press. And I was like, I'm big time now. I mean, I got it all now. This is crazy. So, I had all of that in my little teeny workshop in that townhouse, and I just started building stuff. And I bought my very first big boy tool when I was in that little utility room. And it's kind of a joke when you say it now that it was my first big boy tool, but I bought a Delta contractor table saw. It was the loudest machine on planet Earth. It's basically an upside down circular saw with a rip fence. I mean, it was just a little teeny thing, really meant for being on a job site, emergency situations. But I used it as my main ripping tool, and it was great. I mean, the tool was terrible, but I loved that I had one of those now, and I could really get into some serious stuff. And I started building not serious stuff, but little things. I was limited as to what I could do in that room because I couldn't carry a piece of plywood in that room. No way. It was way too small. Plus it was downstairs. There was no door that went straight to it or anything. So you had to go in the house, down the stairs, around the corner, blah, blah, blah. So I was basically limited to building things out of number 2 pine boards that you can buy at Home Depot. And that's what I did. And back then in the 90s, that would have been the late 90s, the style that everybody decorated their houses in, at least everybody I knew, was that kind of Logenberger, workshops of Gerald E. Henn, country living type things made out of pine, still had the knots in it, and, window valances and shelves and things on the wall, and you put all the tchotchkes on it. And we look back at that now and we're like, oh, that was kind of silly, but that was the style back then. And that was perfect for what I was doing. I could do what Mr. Hilligas did. I could make gifts for people and stuff, make them little shelves. They'd love it because I made it and all that kind of stuff. I had a blast. But when I really got serious was 2002. That's when my woodworking went to a whole other level. And that was because my ex and I bought a house, 46 Sunrise Valley Court. There's no reason why I shouldn't say these addresses. I don't live anywhere near there. I don't even live in the same state now. But if you want to see the house that her and I bought together, 46 Sunrise Valley Court, Stafford, Virginia, 22554. It's a very nice house, 2-story colonial on a full unfinished basement. And my ex at the time very much supported what I was doing because, I was making a lot of things for our house. So she benefited from my hobby too. And so she was basically like, take the basement, whatever, the whole thing, you can use that. And that was great because it was probably, 1,200 square feet. And it wasn't wide open. It was like a big L shape, but it was great because I could build things over here. I could finish them over there. There's no sawdust over there. It was amazing. That's when I really started to upgrade my tools. The very first upgrade I made was that table saw. I bought, and I wish I could find out, I'm sure it's still available. I bought a rigid 1 3/4 horsepower table saw, which was incredible. I think Home Depot still offers it. It was not a full blown cabinet saw, but it was on a mobile base. It was cast iron. It was quiet. You turn it on and it sounded like that instead of wow, which is what the first table saw was that I had. It had a really nice fence on it. It was gorgeous. I loved that saw so much. And I built a lot of stuff using that saw. I also upgraded that little benchtop bandsaw. I never got rid of it because it had sentimental value to me because my father-in-law gave it to me. I upgraded to a floor standing Delta bandsaw. It was still pretty small. It was probably like an 8-inch bandsaw, maybe even smaller than that. I don't remember. And there's a very specific reason why I don't remember these things. We'll get there. I bought a rigid lathe. Why? Because I was going to build my dining room table and I needed to turn legs for it. So I'm going to buy a lathe. I'm going to learn how to turn and I'm going to make those table legs. By the way, it is the dining table that Lisa and I still use to this day. I have some pictures here that I'm going to show you of some things around our house right now that I built 25 years ago. The dining room table, though, is not one of them. And the reason why is because it's not in the kitchen. We don't have a dining room. This table goes in our kitchen and we're in the middle of remodeling the kitchen. So that dining room table is actually in my living room at the moment. And it's just got all the stuff piled on it. So it's not really worth showing, but very, very soon we will be moving that back into the kitchen. And I am going to do a video refinishing the top of that table. So I'm excited about that. So you'll get to see that, but Lisa and I still use that table to this day. And that I built in that basement in my house in Stafford, in that basement, which was awesome. I made almost all of my woodworking memories in that basement. And I have some pictures here of some things that I'm going to show you that I made in that basement. This first one here, this is a little cabinet. I actually got the design for this from Fine Woodworking magazine. I built that in 2002. I mean, it had to have been maybe 2003. A lot of these projects I did right when we moved into that house. This one is one of my particular favorites. These are not old photos. I took these photos 15 minutes ago. We are still using all of these things to this day. This is another one here that I built for a very specific purpose. Got to cover up that other thing on the side there because we're going to talk about that in a minute. That cabinet was built specifically for the storage of DVDs, which don't really have anymore. But I did not get a plan for that one or anything. I just built that. I just designed it and built it. I mean, it's nothing extravagant, but I love it. And you know, a lot of people, a lot of husbands, wives, exes will take any opportunity they can to bash their ex. I'm going to be 51 years old this year. Her and I have not been together for almost 20 years. I'm over all that. I ain't got time to sit here and bash her. Believe me, there's plenty of things I could say, but I won't. But I do feel it necessary to give credit where credit's due. When her and I separated in 2008 and we went our separate ways, she did not fight me at all for any of these things that I built. It was almost like she didn't even try. It was just like, yeah, you made those things. You can take those. So it was very cool. This little cabinet here is just a little silly thing that Lisa loves. And I'm talking about actually both the little blue cabinet on the left and the one on the right. This was very much the style that people decorated in back then. Just pine stuff, let the knots show through, no big deal. you can also see, and I didn't even think about this until just showing you this picture right now, the wood turned piece that's on top of that is actually a lamp. And I made that lamp. I turned that. That is one of my creations there. I've got several lamps in this house. And I don't have pictures of any of them, but I got the picture of the bottom of that one. That was something I really enjoyed doing, and I did that for quite a while. I made so many lamps and gave them away as gifts. It was so much fun to do that. This little thing here is just silly. I don't even know why I took a picture of this, but that again is very much the style back in the 90s. People were building really simple, silly little cabinets like that. And I don't know. I don't know why I'm showing that. And yes, that is a jar of eggshells on top of it. I don't know why it's got eggshells on top of it. I know why Lisa keeps those. She feeds them to snails or puts them in the snail tanks. But I don't know why it's sitting on that cabinet, but who cares? It really doesn't matter. This is one of my favorite pieces that I made in that basement back then. It's basically in a storage room right now, because of the remodeling that we're doing. I love this piece so much. And it is one of my favorites that I've ever made. What you can't see here is the 7-layer process that I used to get that finish. It's black paint, or it's stain with black paint over top of it, and then a blue paint over top of that, and then stain on top of that, and then the burgundy paint, and then stain on top of that. I don't even know why I did all of that, but it was the whole antiquing process of that piece. I still absolutely love that. And it is in the front room of our house, but currently serves as like a storage room. But I love that piece, and I will never be separated from that piece. I love that so much. Really super proud of it. And the interior of that cabinet is blue, which kind of makes it, it's that light blue color, kind of makes it look antique. You know, I don't know. I love that thing. And Lisa loves it, so that's cool. But one of my fondest memories as a woodworker in that basement would be this piece right here. This is obviously rocking horse. You didn't think I was going to say buffet server, did you? This rocking horse has a lot of dust on it right now because it's sitting right outside of our kitchen, which is currently being remodeled. I did not think to dust it off before I took this photo. The story behind this rocking horse is I was on vacation somewhere. I don't even remember where it was. I'm just trying to make this smaller so it's not covering me up the whole time. I was on vacation, my ex, my daughter, and I don't know where we were. And there was a Woodcraft there. We didn't have a Woodcraft local to us. So I'm not going to not go to Woodcraft. So we went into Woodcraft. My ex and my daughter went that way. I went that way to just go do my thing. And I'm walking around the store. I get to the back of the store, and my daughter is on that exact, not that one, but a rocking horse that they had built. She was like 4, maybe 3. She was on that rocking horse, rocking back and forth, and just said, "Daddy, look at me." And I was like, there was a Woodcraft guy there with me. And I was like, all right, well, where's the plan for that? Of course I have to build that now. So I bought a plan and I built that. It's solid oak with walnut inlays on it and leather ears. And my daughter helped me with it. And Lisa and I were looking for this picture last week. We looked everywhere. I have a picture of that rocking horse on my workbench. I'm standing next to it, sanding it. And my daughter, who was like 3 or 4 at the time, was standing on top of the workbench with a piece of sandpaper in her hand, helping me. And she just had the most serious look on her face. Like she was like really going for it. Absolutely, unforgettable moment for me. Documented in that photo, which we cannot find. I have no idea where that photo is. I know I have it somewhere, but it's one of my prized possessions for sure. That is the only piece in this house that has a designated recipient in our will. That's the only one. Everything else, y'all figure it out. That one goes to my daughter because it was made for her. She helped me with it. Helped me with it. It's the only piece that really, and I don't even know that it means a whole lot to her, but it sure does mean a whole lot to me. All of that, everything that I just showed you was made in that basement at 46 Sunrise Valley Court, Stafford, Virginia. Lots of really, really cool memories, lots of workshop expansion, lots of stuff happened in that basement. And it was probably, I can't say it was my woodworking prime, but it was one of the best, some of the best woodworking memories that I have. But then in 2004, I hated my job. I was a police officer at the time. I loved police work. I hated the department that I worked on. No reason to get into details about that. I wasn't in trouble or anything. It wasn't anything like that. It was just, I don't want to get into the politics of why I didn't like that place, but I'd really grown sour about that place. And I wanted to get out of there, but I didn't know what I was going to do. I was thumbing through a woodworking magazine and I saw an advertisement for a company called Guardsman Furniture Pro. This was a franchise that I know Guardsman still exists, but I don't think they have this franchise anymore. But I was reading up on it and it was basically repair furniture for a living, start your own business, repairing furniture. We at Guardsman Furniture Pro will teach you how to do it. And we will also provide you with all the work you'll ever need. I said, what's this all about? There was a website, but it was websites weren't what they are now. This would 2004. And I don't even know that we had good internet at the time. So I don't know how much online research I did on this, but I called Guardsman like the next day and I was like, what's this all about? And they explained to me on the phone what the whole deal was. Basically, Guardsman was, and I'm sure still is, one of the number one providers of furniture protection plans. You go to a furniture store, you buy a new piece of furniture. They ask you when you're buying it, do you want to get the extended warranty on it? If you get a scratch, dent, ding, if it breaks, within 5 years, they'll come out and they'll fix it. And if they can't fix it, they'll replace it. You've heard that sales pitch. I am a staunch believer in those protection plans. Why? Because I did that for 20 years, almost 20 years, 16, 17 years. That's what Guardsman was. They needed technicians because they sold these protection plans. They needed technicians to go out and service these warranty claims. Otherwise, they had contractors do it. And when I called, the lady was like, you live in a really densely populated area. We have a lot of furniture stores that we sell this plan in your area. There's a lot of work that we could give you in that area. So this would be a really smart investment for you. And I took that as, well, you're just being a salesperson. I'm sure it's not as good as you're saying it is. But part of my research into that company was actually going to Grand Rapids, Michigan, where they were located, and visiting them. And they actually suggested that I do this and visit, see the place, see what they got going on, and they could talk about more details then. And that's exactly what I did. I went to Grand Rapids, and I spent the day there. They gave me a tour of the whole place. They explained to me how everything works. And then they actually took me to their computers and they showed me in your area, in your zip codes where you live. I lived in Stafford, Virginia at the time, which is about 45 miles from Washington, D.C. All the people live between Stafford, Virginia and DC, or in DC. And there's a lot of money in there. And it's a real transient area. People are in and out all the time. There's also a couple of really big military bases and stuff like that. There's a very dense population where I lived. And she was showing me on the computer, look at all of this. It was actually the CEO of the company was, excuse me, showing me all of this. Like, look at all of this work. This is all in the last 90 days. And it was just like a long list. You had to scroll like 5 times to get down to the bottom of it. And she's like, if you were a franchisee, we would have given all of this to you. I'm not making a sales pitch. I'm showing you the numbers here. The second that you become a franchisee, this will all come to you. Now, those had already been done, but I'm saying everything from this point will come to you. So I did at the time, I was 30, I guess, at the time. I did what every 30-year-old would do. I called my mom and I said, Mom, listen, this is what's going on here. She hated the idea because she was like, you know, you got a great job. You work for the federal government. You're a police officer. It makes me very proud to tell all the ladies at church that you're a police officer and all of this. And I would tell her stories of things that happened up there and all these celebrities that I met and all of this. And she was very proud of her youngest child being a police officer. She didn't want me to leave there. And she said the words that every mother would say, which is, John, it sounds too good to be true. And if it's too good to be true, it probably is. You've probably heard that from your mother or your father. And I said, I know, but the lady showed me. It's right there. So I didn't listen to my mom. I paid the money. I bought a franchise in my area. And let me just say, it was the best decision I ever made in my life. It was unbelievable. Now, don't get this all twisted. Don't start thinking, well, that sounds really good. I'm going to go buy me a guardsman franchise and I'm going to do what John was doing. I don't think they offer this anymore. I'm not even going to get into the details why, but it actually, you know, the very short version is the CEO that I was telling you that I met and I was talking with, and she was this awesome lady. Well, she was replaced by this other broad that came in and ruined the place. That's just a fact. I don't remember her name, but I even told her to her face, this was a much better company before you became the CEO. I was pretty proud of myself that I had the balls to say that to her. But we'll get into why I met her in a minute. But I started that. I came home. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. To become a franchisee for that company, you had to pay a franchise fee. And then you had to go up to their facility, go through a 3-week school, and become certified to handle their warranty claims, which I did. Went back to Grand Rapids. I don't remember dates. Who cares? Spent 3 weeks up there and took their school and learned how to do these warranty claims. I knew how to do the work, but I learned how to do them the guardsman way. And then that was it. I was a franchisee. It was done with. I bought all the stuff that we were required to use certain things to do these warranty claims. I bought all of that stuff while I was there, and I drove home. And the interesting thing is, you know, you want to talk about sounds too good to be true. The Friday afternoon that the school was over and I officially became a guardsman franchise, I was certified. They put me in the system. They said, okay, we're going to open up all of these zip codes for you now. And so from this point forward, any jobs that come in are going to go to you. Like, great. That's what I signed up for. That's awesome. I left Grand Rapids. It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. I didn't get home till like 1 a.m. GPS took me the wrong way. I made a wrong turn and ended up going like 2 hours out of the way. All this. I didn't get home till like 1 a.m. But my ex at the time called me when I was on my way home. And I said, hey, this was like 9 o'clock at night. I said, do me a favor, just because I'm going crazy and I need to check this. Go on the website I gave her the sign-in information and all of that. And I said, just check this just to make sure that I'm in the system. So she does that while we're on the phone. And she looks at it and she's like, what, when I sign on, I put in my username and password. The first thing that popped up was a notification that said, you have 17 new work orders. I said, what? This drove me crazy. I didn't get home for like another 3 hours, but I got home. I immediately got on the computer and it was true. From the time I left Grand Rapids until I got home, late that night, I'd received 17 jobs from Guardsman. And these were all averaging like $100 a piece. You go to the customer's house, you fix the furniture, Guardsman pays you $100, job's done. Thank you very much. So basically I had gotten $1,700 worth of jobs in the amount of time it took me to drive home. Unbelievable. So it was not too good to be true. It was amazing. And I couldn't wait to call my mom and tell her that. I immediately that next Monday went out on the road and started going to these people's houses, fixing their furniture. I was instantaneously full-time. The interesting thing is that Wednesday, I think it was, I was talking to my ex. I was on my way home from, I had finished my route for the day and I was on my way home and telling her about my day. And she said, yeah, a fax came through for you today. Remember those fax machines? I'm always so tickled whenever I hear somebody say, yeah, you can fax it to me now in 2025. That's so ridiculous. But that was a thing then. And I was like, well, what is it? She's like, I don't know. Something came through the fax. We had never had a fax machine before. We bought it for the business. I get home, I look at it. It's a fax from a company called Gallahan's Home Furnishings. Look at this and I'm like, what? Well, this looks like a work order. This says go to this customer and fix what's going on here? What is this? I call Gallahan's Furniture. Now, Gallahan's Furniture in Fredericksburg, Virginia, no longer there. Again, another example of a new boss coming in and ruining a business. Same thing happened with Guardsman. And it's terrible when you see that kind of thing happen. But at the time, Gallahan's was known for being the high-end furniture store in our area. The kind of area that the kind of store that if you went in there and bought a dining room table and chairs, you're spending like $7,000. Or that might have even been a cheap one, but they sold brands like Thomasville, Bernhardt, Nichols and Stone, Henredon, like names that are up there in American furniture manufacturing, big time names, very expensive. And I got my furniture at cost from there, which was great. But I called them up and I was like, hey, what is this? And they're like, oh, we have a technician that goes out. He's an in-house guy and he goes out to our customers when damage happens on delivery and stuff like that. But he's kind of overloaded. So we needed another technician. We called up Guardsman and we said, hey, we sell the Guardsman protection plan. Do you have any technicians in our area? And they gave you our number. I'm like, Guardsman comes through for us again. This is amazing. How cool is this? Gallahan's Home Furnishings turned out to be about a $30,000 to $40,000 a year customer of ours. Unbelievable. Then, not so much longer after that, same thing happens over and over and over again. We get another fax from a moving company called Interstate Van Lines, still very much a business to this day. They're all over the country. They're one of these movers that goes all around. They sent me a work order. We did a move for this customer. There was damage to the furniture. Can you go out and appraise that? And it was one of those deals where I would go out, I would write up an estimate for all of the repairs that need to be done on the furniture. I would send that in to them and they would either say, okay, go back out and fix it all. Or they would say, that's too much. We're just going to cash out with the customer. So that was like a $20,000 a year customer. But then something really, really big happened again because of Guardsman. we got a call from a company called Southern Kitchens in Alexandria, Virginia, still in business to this day. They sell very high-end custom kitchens into homes. There's a lot of construction in the northern Virginia area. A lot of people tearing down old homes and building up new multi-million-dollar mansions in their place, putting these super high-end cabinets in there. And Southern Kitchens needed somebody to go out and touch up do their punch out lists, basically. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. They got my number from Guardsman. But then there was a huge twist that happened. One of the jobs that they sent us on, the Southern Kitchens sent us on, was for a builder called BCN, which is the initials for the owner. The owner's name is Brian Normile. They're still in business today. They're a custom home builder in Arlington, Virginia. I go out to this job. I immediately meet the superintendent of the job, of the construction site. And he shows me the touch-ups that need to be done on the furniture or on the cabinets and all of that. And then he's like, can we just call you directly? Because we're building like 8 houses right now. We've always got like 7 or 8 houses going up. This was during the real estate boom. I'd love to be able to just call you directly instead of going through Southern Kitchens. Can we do that? Sure, no problem. I ended up going up to them at least twice a month. They would not ask me for an estimate. They wouldn't. The guy would just call me and say, hey, here's the address. Can you get to this house within the next 2 weeks? Yeah, no problem. I go to the house and I just do the work. And then just send them a bill. They didn't care. I didn't need to get approval if it was a $600 touch-up job or if it was a $100 touch-up. Didn't matter. I just did the job, sent them the invoice, and they paid fast. I am at one of the jobs, the superintendent. I got to know this guy. Forgive me, I don't remember his name, but he was a young guy that was the superintendent of all of these construction sites. We're talking one day and he's like, you do really good work. Do you build custom cabinets? And I said, well, I can, but I don't really have the setup for it right now. But, I'm capable of it, but I can't right now. And he said, well, whenever you're ready, let me know, because we will always have work for you. Not building the kitchens. We're going to get those through Southern Kitchens, but for, like laundry cabinets and TV entertainment centers and man cave stuff and all of that. Almost every single one of our houses has a custom piece like that in it. So, I'll have plenty of work for you if you want to, when you're ready. I said, okay, cool. Filed that up here and remembered that for later on. So at this point, when we get to like 2007, first of all, let me just tell you, again, I loved to be able to rub this into my mom that told me it was too good to be true. My first year wasn't even a full year. It was only like 8 months. I made $104,000 just from Guardsman. That doesn't include Gallahan's, the moving company, the kitchen companies, all of that. Second year, $157,000 by myself in my van, going to people's houses, fixing furniture. This was a racket. Like, I didn't even understand how I could get away with making this much money. It was ridiculous. But I was overwhelmed. It was so much. I mean, I had more work than I could handle on my own. Not going to go through the whole story, but I ended up hiring an employee. He was a disaster. He was a nightmare. He stole from me. His dad ended up in the hospital, so he drove my van to Connecticut. And on the way, we checked online banking and we could see this. First of all, didn't tell me he was going there, just disappeared and stopped every, a couple 100 miles or whatever it was to fill up his van using my debit card to fill up his van and also buy cigarettes and sodas. He basically drove to see his dad in Connecticut that was in the hospital, and I funded the trip. He was immediately fired after that. I've got sympathy. Your dad's in the hospital, but do I have to pay for that? Doesn't make sense to me that I would have to pay for that. But anyway, we got rid of him, but I needed help. I mean, I was desperate, and I was having a conversation with my best friend at the time. I actually had a few best friends. He was one of them. One of my absolute closest friends, a guy I would do anything for, and he would do anything for me. We were having a conversation one day, and long story short, he was like, my job, I'm not really happy there. I'm kind of in the position you were a few years ago. Like, what about me buying into your business? Not being an employee for you, but what if I was to take a second mortgage on my house and pay you for half of your business and we become business partners? Stewed on that for a little bit, weighed the pros and cons, did all of that, and eventually ended up agreeing to that. And him and I became business partners. He gave me a check. Not going to talk about how much it was. It was not substantial, but it was enough. And I was happy with it. My ex was happy with it. And him and I became business partners. And one of the first things that he said when he was officially half owner of the business, he said, okay, we're making a mistake. He said, we are wasting your talents, which this was a real thrill for me to hear somebody say this. He said, you belong in a shop. You need to be in the shop doing antique restorations, which is something I was doing in my basement. I would be in a customer's house and they'd be like, do you do refinishing? I've got that table that's old. I got it from my grandma. Could you refinish that for me? Sure. Give them an estimate. Take the piece, immediately put it in my van, take it home and refinish it in my basement. It was great. I'd always had refinishing jobs that I was doing in my basement. And he was like, you need to be doing that and you need to be building custom stuff. You said that BCN, they have work for you. We need you in the shop. And I was like, well, I'm a woodworker and that's been my dream forever. So how are we going to do that? We ended up renting a shop in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Don't remember the address. But we rented a 1,500 square foot shop in a brand new building. It was beautiful. And moved into that. We immediately also started buying tools. And I completely outfitted the shop with Jet tools. If you're a fan of woodworking on YouTube at all, my shop looked a lot like John Malecki's shop, except way, way smaller. I think John Malecki's shop is like 10,000 square feet. Mine was 1,500, but it looks like his in the way that almost his whole shop is decked out with Jet tools, the brand Jet, except for his table saw, which is a saw stop. But I love John Malecki. So we bought all Jet tools, Jet bandsaw, drill press, joiner, planer, table saw, 3 horsepower table saw. It was beautiful. We had a huge spray booth in the back. This thing was set up. But the reason why we were able to do that was because I called up BCN and I said, okay, remember when you said, when I have a shop and I'm ready to call you up and you'll have work for me? I'm ready. And he said, okay, I need a 72 by he immediately told me of a laundry room, basically like he called it a locker system. This customer was buying a really expensive house and they wanted to set up like a little mud room and have a place for the kids to put their boots and their coats and all of that kind of stuff. Gave me the measurements. He's like, can you have that for me within 2 weeks? Sure. So that was our first cabinet job that we had. BCN, back then, we had the shop for 3 years. They were $100,000 a year customer for us. Building custom cabinets, built-ins, bookcases, all different kinds of stuff. It was unbelievable. And I was loving it. That was my woodworking prime. Absolutely. I was doing everything. I was the designer. I was the builder. I was the finisher. I was the installer. We bought a trailer. I would take the stuff up. I would hire from a temp agency, I would hire a helper to go on the installs with me. My partner, if you're wondering what he was doing, when I was in the shop, he basically took over the field work that I was doing. So he was going out and doing the guardsman calls. He went to the guardsman class and got certified, and he was doing all of those. And he was handling the Gallahan's customers, the van line customers. He was doing all of that work that I was doing before. And I was in the shop refinishing stuff and doing custom cabinets. It was amazing. Best times of my life. And then I got a call from Brian Normile, the owner of BCN Homes. And he said, Finsanity became a member. You figured it out, Joe. You're our second member. Thank you so much for that. As if you don't support us enough. Brian Normile calls me, and I'm like, well, this is a big deal. This is the owner of the company. I said, hey, Brian, what's up? And he said, hey, man, I need to have a meeting with you. I said, okay. So basically we coordinated it for next time I was in Arlington, because Arlington was like an hour away. Next time I was in Arlington, I met up with him, and he said, okay, here's the deal. I'm building a house for myself, and it's an 8,000 square foot house. And I need the office of all offices. I don't even think Anchorman was out at the time, but he wanted rich mahogany. He wanted the entire thing, wall panels, bookshelves, desk, all of it, mahogany. The dream job for a cabinet maker. And then he also had like a theater that he needed cabinets all the way across the room. I keep hitting this microphone. He needed these laundry room cabinets, and it was an $80,000 job that he wanted just from us for his new house that he was building. He showed me the plans. It was amazing. He was absolutely killing it at the time. This would have been like early 2008 that him and I had this conversation. And, real estate in 2006, 2007 was absolutely booming. And what he was doing was he would buy an old house in Arlington, Virginia, tear it down and build two in its place. And he would build like $1.8 million houses, two of them in its place. It was insane. And the houses that he was building were so gorgeous. I didn't feel worthy of building cabinets for these houses. They were just so nice, but they were always very happy with my work. I was very proud of what I did for him. But this was the holy grail job of any cabinet maker. You're going to put together an office like that. The office, it was so intimidating. It was an octagon. That was really scary. All those angles, but I was so excited about it. I had this whole plan, and he's like, we're not ready to break ground yet. We're probably going to be ready to break ground on it in like 6 months, but I wanted to give you a really good heads up that we're going to be doing this, and I want you to do all of those built-ins. Super excited. So everything, it could not be going better. I mean, everything for the business, everything was perfect. It was just the dream scenario for any woodworker that would ever, what you would dream of. That's what I was living at the time. Yeah, it was hectic. We had deadlines. I mean, it was a lot, but I was living the dream. This is what I always dreamt of doing since I was watching Norm in the New Yankee Workshop. This is what I always wanted to do, and I was doing it. It was amazing. It was the equivalent of being like a professional athlete to me. It was unbelievable. But then these are the parts of the story that I was not going to include, but my beautiful wife told me I should. Then everything started to crumble down, and I had basically the worst month that I think any human being could possibly have. No, this is not the most tragic part that I titled this live stream, the most tragic woodworking story ever told. This is not it. That's coming. It gets worse. Trust me. So I don't I don't want to go into all the details, but my business partner was out in the field doing all of the mobile work. I was in the shop doing all the work, all the cabinets and all of the refinishing and all of that. My ex-wife, my wife at the time, you notice I keep referring to her as ex. She was she worked from home. She did all of the scheduling for our business. So she was a part of the business too. Well, I found out that she was, let's say, participating in extracurricular activities outside of our marriage. You get what I'm saying? I don't need to say it, do I? Now, anyone who has a marriage that has survived that, I got a lot of respect for you. Mine did not, nor could it have. It was not possible. That is a deal breaker for me when I found out that that was happening. So immediately this picture perfect, everything's great. I live in a great house. I thought I had a great marriage. I had a swimming pool built in my backyard. Like, I was living large. I was working my dream job. All of a sudden, boom, that hits. Like, all right. So now I got to figure out I don't know, how old was I? I don't know, 2008, whatever. Who cares how old I was? Doesn't matter. Now I got to figure out what I'm going to do as far as, my personal life goes. Business is still what it is. She ain't going to work there anymore, but I got to figure out what I'm going to do as far as that goes. And of course that set off a chain reaction where I got to find, we went our separate ways. I got to find another place to live. There was the whole custody battle, which I won, by the way, it was early 2009 when we were done with the whole custody thing. It was still pretty unheard of for a dad to get custody of a 9-year-old daughter. But I did. And, yeah, that was a proud moment for me. But anyway, I had to figure all that out, what I was going to do. And I was having a conversation. It gets so much worse. I was having a conversation with my business partner. He had come to the shop, which he did almost every day. And we would talk, and he was doing what a good friend and business partner would do. He was, trying to help me feel better. But something was off. I didn't understand it. I didn't know, I couldn't figure it out, but something was off with this man. It was a really awkward and weird conversation. We were talking about my marriage falling apart, and I didn't figure it out until probably like an hour later. It just hit me like, oh, wait a minute. No, this can't be. I called him up and I said, we were talking and things were off, but I'm kind of starting to put 2 and 2 together now. Not to go into too much detail again, but basically found out he was participating in extracurricular activities too. No, Joe. No, it was not him. See, that's where this gets so much worse. When I first found out about my wife's extracurricular activities, they were just with some dude that she didn't know, I didn't know, which kind of makes it worse. No, it was like 3 weeks later that my business partner became involved. Yeah. So now I'm like, well, okay. Not sure what I'm supposed to do with that. And he said, I've threatened 2 men in my life. And this was the first time. We're on the phone and he said, listen, I'm going to come back to the shop. We're going to work this out. You just do whatever you want to do. You can do whatever you want to. You want to beat me down. You do what you have to do. And I'm not going to say his name, but I said, dude, you coming back to this shop right now would be the worst mistake you've ever made in your life. Don't do it. We're probably you know, I don't know where you're going to end up, but I'm going to end up in jail. If you're a friend of mine at all, you will not come back to this shop. And he didn't, which was good, because I really do think I would have ended up with a life sentence after that. So needless to say, my life had completely flipped upside down. And this all happened within 3 weeks. So obviously, I'm not going to be business partners with him anymore. I was having a conversation. The only other time I ever talked to him, no, I talked to him 2 more times in my life. After that conversation, I had a conversation with him. Then I said, all right, listen, this is how it's going to go. We are no longer business partners. I'm going to continue on as I have been. I'm going to pay you this much money every month until you're bought out. This is how it's going to be. If you don't like it, take me to court. He never took me to court. Credit to him. He understood, and that didn't end up happening. We didn't go to court. I bought him out. It took me a long time, but that was over. And I didn't even give him as much money as I said I was going to. I was just basically like, hey, what are you going to do? Take me to court. And he never did. So right after that, I went, I was actually staying temporarily at my sister's house, and I sat down and I had all of everything. Like, I started looking into, how am I going to run this business on my own? Because obviously I have to now. And so I'm looking at, okay, we have all this mobile work. We have all of this shop work that, I'm going to get through it as good as I can. I got that BCN job coming up. So that's going to carry me for a long time. That's an $80,000 job. That's going to carry me for a long time. Plus I have all the other work at the shop. BCN was not the only company that I was building cabinets for. I had private customers. I had all this stuff. I mean, it was going well. It was growing. And I'm looking at it like, how am I going to be able to do all of this myself? And so I started looking at the customers that we had for the mobile work, the going to people's houses and fixing furniture. And I looked at it and I'm like, we haven't gotten a check from Galahans in a while. I'm looking at all of the records and I'm like, we haven't gotten a payment from Galahans in months. They must owe us thousands. Let me give them a call. I called up Galahans. I'd been working for Galahans for 3 years at this point. They were like a $40,000 a year customer. I called the lady up and I was like, hey, John, what's going on here? Yeah, we haven't gotten a payment from you in a while. And she says, I swear to you, this is exactly what she said. She goes, oh, this is awkward. I said, what? What's awkward? She's like, John, I talked to your business partner a couple of months ago, and I let him know that we were not going to be using your service anymore. I said, what? She said, yeah, he was showing up to customers late. He was not showing up. Sometimes he would show up and he would do bad work. We got a lot of customer complaints. We had to, we were replacing a lot of furniture and, it just wasn't working out. I told him, but he never told me. And my ex-wife never told me. Nobody told me. So I called her, my ex, and I'm like, what the F? What happened with Galahans? She's like, oh yeah, he didn't want to tell you because you would be mad. You didn't want to tell me that, but you told me everything else. Anyway, so like that $40,000 a year customer that I thought I had gone. Then I'm like, well, I still have BCN. Call up Brian Normile. Hey, it's been 6-7 months since we talked about your house. What's the progress on that? I want to be able to get started on that as soon as possible. Oh yeah, sorry about that. I meant to call you and tell you, unfortunately, you remember what happened in 2008 when everything crashed? He's like, yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to move forward on any projects right now until this whole real estate crash gets sorted out. And so I don't know when we're going to build my house. It could be 2 years from now. He's like, but I still want you to do it. But it's going to be a while down the road. And I'm just like, okay, there's another $80,000 gone, along with all of the other work that I was doing for him. Literally walls crashing down at this point. So, we lost Southern Kitchens. We lost Gallahan's. We lost the van lines, all because of him. And I was completely oblivious to it. I was so overwhelmed with building the cabinets and doing the refinishing and doing all of the shop work that I was doing. I had no clue that any of this happened. I didn't know until I needed it and it was gone. But I still had guardsmen. And so that was a relief. So what I ended up doing was I had no choice. I had to shut the shop down. At the time, the shop was costing us like $2,500 a month, costing me $2,500 a month. I had to go out on the road and I had to do the work that made me quick money, going to people's houses, fixing their furniture. That was quick, easy, almost guaranteed money. I had to put things on hold, or I had to shut the shop down. And that was in 2010. I shut the shop down, early 2010. Moved into a house in King George, Virginia. I moved all of the tools into the basement of that house and just kept on working. So I would go out on the road. I would fix people's furniture all day. I would come home and build custom cabinets and do the refinishing work and do all of that stuff in my basement in this house in King George. I was just renting this place because I was newly separated, and it was just me and my daughter there. And it was fine. It worked. It was a small basement. I was used to a 1,500 square foot shop, but it's better than canceling it all to begin with. And so just before I moved into that house, I met Lisa, who is the love of my life, an immense upgrade when you consider not even the way my first marriage ended, but everything about Lisa is a massive upgrade here. So it actually, in the end, it ended up working out for me, but enough personal stuff. I ended up winning the lottery when I met Lisa. It was great. And I'm in that house in King George. I'm doing all of that work. Her and I decided, Lisa and I, after a year of being together, Lisa and I hit it off really fast. We merged our households into one house, also in King George, Virginia. This house had a 3.5, 4-car detached garage, which was perfect. Between the two of us, we have 5 kids. She had full custody of her kids. I had full custody of mine. So they were always there. My daughter did go every other weekend to spend with her mother. Miserable. My daughter wasn't miserable, but I was miserable whenever that happened. But we had a house full all the time. So we needed a good size house, and it needed to have a space for me to be able to do that work. We found this house, and it was a nightmare. This house was horrible. The house was great, but the landlord, the owner of the house, was a disaster. I'm going to tell you one thing about this landlord, and then I'm going to tell you about threatening him. This is so funny, and this is kind of X-rated, but it doesn't involve any bad words, I promise. Lisa and I are standing with him. This was like a month after we moved into that house. This guy, his name was Jim Horner. Yes, I will say his name because I still think I'll end up in trouble if I ever meet up with him face to face. He's probably dead by now. He was always coming to the house, always. And, Lisa and I had jobs. We would be out at our work, and the kids during the summertime would be home. They were old enough to be home. I mean, our oldest at the time, I call her kids mine. I have for 15 years now. I mean, they're mine just as much as they are hers. Our oldest was, I want to say he was like 15. And then we had, they went down in age down to like 9. But anyway, so they were certainly old enough to be at home in the summer and he would show up and it's just the kids there. And I'd be calling him like, dude, come on. You're freaking our kids out. You're looking in windows and stuff. What's wrong with you? Like, come on. And anyway, he was a problem. But we were standing in the front yard with him, and he decided this was appropriate to say. He says, look up there. This was one of the most unique houses you've ever seen. He said, look up there. You see that piece of trim? And it was like this molding that was cut in a fancy design. And I was like, yeah, it was way up at the peak. I was like, yeah. He goes, you notice what that looks like? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, if I'm being honest with you, it kind of looks like a penis. And he said, well, that's exactly what I wanted it to look like. That's Jim Horner. That's this guy. You wonder why I had a problem with him coming to. Now, this is one of those things. If you looked at it, you're like, oh my God, there's a big penis up there. You really had to like look at it and be like, oh, I see it. Like a subliminal thing. But anyway, this guy was a huge problem. So needless to say, when our year lease was up, we needed to get out of there. We didn't tell him that. We didn't like say, you know, you're a huge pain in the butt, so we're leaving. We're not going to re-up our lease. We just told him, hey, you know, we're going to go to a different place. And I was at the house, biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. We were at that house. He came by to basically do like an inspection when we were going to move out. And we're at the garage, and I'm looking at all of my stuff, and I was in the middle of packing up all of my stuff. And I just flippantly said to him, yeah, I haven't quite figured out where I'm going to set all this stuff up yet, but, you know, I gotta figure out what I'm going to do with all of this. And he's like, well, you know what? If you want, you can leave all of that here. You can keep it in this garage. And unless I have another tenant come in right away, you know, it's totally fine. You can just leave it. And, if a new tenant comes in and they don't need the garage, then I can rent the garage to you, which I kind of thought was weird. Like, there's people living there, but I'll come to the garage. Like, I didn't like it, but I was like, what other choice do I have? All of the equipment that I was telling you about was all in there. All floor standing jet woodworking equipment, 2-3 horsepower equipment, joiner, planer, bandsaw, drill press, table saw, spray booth, you name it. I mean, we didn't have the spray booth set up, but it was there. Like, I had $45,000 worth of stuff in there. I'll tell you how I know it's $45,000 in a couple of minutes here. Tell you why I know that. It was a lot. And you're talking about equipment that needs a forklift or a pallet jack to move. This is why it was such a dilemma for me. I don't know what to do with all of this equipment, and why it was such a huge relief when Jim Horner said, you can just keep it here. And then, you know, if I have a tenant come in and they need the garage, then you'll need to get it out then. But, you know, maybe it'll at least give you like 30, 60 days to figure out what you're going to do. And I was like, what a huge relief. And I had one of the things that I had in there, which I was really proud of. If you're a fan of the New Yankee Workshop, you've probably seen this episode. Norm built in one of the episodes like a workbench hutch thing. It was like 7 feet wide. It had 9 drawers going across the bottom, a workbench, and then shelves on the back up against the wall for storing all the stuff. I duplicated that design from Norm. I built that for my shop that I had in Fredericksburg, and I brought it with me to this house in King George. And Jim Horner was admiring this. He was like, that's a really nice workbench you got there. And I said, you know what? I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. Because you're doing this favor for me, if you like that workbench right there, I'm going to leave it here. When I come and get all of my stuff, I'm going to give you that. That's my way of showing you how much I appreciate you letting me leave my tools here until I can figure out what I'm going to do with them. And he's like, what? Like, he was so excited. He's like, man, that is so nice of you. I can't even believe it. That's so cool. I wasn't expecting that. I'm like, I know. And that's why I offered it. You know, I'll build another one for me. It's not a big deal, but I'm going to give that to you for letting me do this. And he was like, that's great. That's amazing. Thank you. So Lisa and I ended up, I finished packing everything up. So all the tools were in there. Nothing was plugged in, you know, it was all organized. It was all boxed up and it was all basically ready to move. I just had to figure out where it was all going to go. And Lisa and I got a new place. Fans of KG Tropicals will know that new place as where we started the KG Tropicals YouTube channel was in the garage of that house. The house that Lisa and I got, the house after this one, the Nightmare House. That's where we started KG Tropicals and the whole thing. But anyway, I would go because I was still going out on the road fixing furniture. I was still doing my thing. I was not doing the refinishing work or anything like that or custom cabinets anymore. I had to do what I was capable of doing. And I would go by that garage at least once a week because I needed to grab my router. I needed to grab this, or I needed to grab that, something to do my work outside of, you know, the mobile furniture repair work that I was doing. And it was, I think, a Saturday. I don't remember. Lisa would know. And the day that it was not important. We were at the house and I needed to go over to that garage just to pick something up. I don't know what it was that I needed. I needed to go there to get something. And so Lisa and I got in the truck and we drove over there, drove into the driveway. Nobody's there. Still no tenant. And, you know, I was in contact with Jim Horner and I was telling, you know, I would check in, you know, you got anybody looking at it? Is it, no, we don't have any new tenants yet. You know, everything's still fine. We're still good. I'm like, okay. So I was up to date on what was going on. And I had permission by him to go there whenever I needed to pick something up. So we went in there and, or we went to the shop and I was like, okay, I'm just going to run in and grab this real quick, whatever it was that I was there to get. Lisa stayed in the truck. This is the part, you know, it's coming. The most tragic thing. I went into that garage and it was stone cold empty. Everything was gone. Except for what? There was one thing, and it was the only thing that was still in that garage. That New Yankee Workshop hutch that I told him I was going to gift to him for letting me keep my stuff in there. All of it. Including everything that was in the drawers of that hutch. When you are woodworking as a profession, it's not uncommon to have a lot of a particular tool. Like I had like 6 routers, and I'm talking about Porter cable, 3 horsepower, giant routers that at the time were like $400 a piece. I don't even know if Porter Cable still makes tools anymore, but I had a drawer, a big drawer at the bottom of that workbench that was just full of Porter Cable routers. All of the 3 horsepower and 2 horsepower, 220 volt, floor standing cabinet equipment, all of it gone. All of the tools that I inherited from my father, which I still had, all of the tools that I got from my father-in-law. I had furniture in that belonged to customers. Gone. I had furniture in that garage that was my grandmother's, that my sister had inherited, that my sister had given to me to refinish for her in that garage. Gone. When I tell you that garage was stone cold empty, I'm saying not a screw. The floors were swept. It was a ghost town in there, except for that one workbench. That's the only thing that was left. It was the only time I've been through stuff in my life. We all have. But it was the only time that I quite literally dropped to my knees. I'm in there by myself. Lisa's still sitting in the truck. I dropped to my knees and I just sat there like, and I swear to you, I did this. I went like my eyes were playing tricks on me. I'm looking and I'm like, this is unimaginable. This can't happen. I've spent the last how many years? Well over a decade collecting all of these tools, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars at a time, shelling out for these tools that I got from my late father, my father-in-law. Like, this can't be real. But it was. And I didn't do it right then and there. I think I waited. I don't remember when it was. I might have been standing right outside and Lisa might have still been in the truck. I don't recall. But I called Jim Horner. And I was surprised that he picked up. But he did. Hello. Hey, John. Like nothing's going on. My first words to him, and I'm not going to say what I actually said, but where the F is my stuff? The first words I said to him. What are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about. Where is my stuff? What have you done? What do you mean? What are you talking about? And I had to tell him as if he didn't know already, because I do know. I don't know this for a fact, but this was him. He did this. I know this. It was never proven, but I knew it right then and there. I knew that he either took it all and put it somewhere else, or he sold it all. I knew it. Probably sold it for next to nothing. And the second that I saw that all those tools were gone, I knew it was him. And so I told him, and I was calling him every MFer in the, listen, I know you have these tools. You need to give me, I'm telling you right now, you need to give me these tools. I'm going to the police right now. I know this was you, blah, blah, blah. He's like, it was almost like I was having that conversation with my old business partner again. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about here, but I got to get to the bottom of this because, if somebody broke into my garage and took all of those tools, I need to figure out how they got in there and stuff like that. I'm on my way. I'm going to come to the house right now. I said, okay, first of all, nobody broke in. The doors were locked. I was a cop for 5 years. I know how this stuff works. There was no tool marks or anything like that, like somebody broke into the door. None of the windows are broken. All of the garage doors were closed and locked. They were all on openers, so they can't open anyway. You did this. I know you did this. You tell me where my stuff is now, and we'll figure this out. If not, I'm going to the police. No, I'm going to be there in a minute. We'll figure it out. I said, listen, this is the second time I've ever threatened somebody. I said, if you come here right now, you will not walk away from here. I'm telling you, I wasn't threatening, the ultimate, but you will not walk away from this place. So let the police handle this. Are you threatening me? I said, no, I'm promising you. I know you know me. It's not going to be pretty if you show up here right now. And he didn't. So thankfully, both times I've threatened somebody, they did the right thing. So I did end up going to the police. I talked with this one detective with the King George County Sheriff's Department for a long time. I went back and forth to this guy with this guy for weeks. He came to my house. He met with me. We talked about everything. He went out there. He saw that there was no break-in evidence at all. He agreed with me that this was something that was organized by Jim Horner. He interviewed Jim Horner, and I remember it like it was, well, first of all, he asked me to put together an itemized list of everything that was in there. That's where I said the number $45,000 came from. So that's how I knew how much everything was. I put that list together for him early on in the investigation. And I remember like it was yesterday, this detective sitting in my dining room, and I'm sitting there with him, and he said, "John, I know it was him, but we just can't prove it. We have no way of proving that he did this. And I'm afraid, I'm afraid we're not going to ever get to the bottom of this." He was honest with me. I mean, he's like, "Listen, I'm going to do everything I can do, but I'm afraid your tools are gone for good." And he was right. It was, I've always said, and this is not the appropriate thing to say in 2025, but I've always said the connection between a man and his tools is similar to the connection that a man has with his children. I know that's ridiculous. I mean, anything that ever happened to any of our kids, which thankfully, they're all good to go. All adults, they're all doing their thing. We're very proud of all of them. They're all doing really well. Obviously, anything happened to them or our grandkids, we got 4 of them now, it would be just as devastating or way more devastating. I'm sorry. But this was like a strong second place. The level of just gut-wrenching violation I felt by this, and to know there's nothing that can ever be done with it. I mean, there's nothing I can do. This is just gone. We didn't have renter's insurance on a place that we weren't renting anymore. So there was no insurance money. There was nothing. I'm just screwed. It's over. The whole woodworking thing is gone for me now. I've never experienced anything like that. Yeah, I don't know how else to describe it. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced when it comes to things like that. I mean, obviously, the loss of my father when I was 23 was, you know what I'm saying? But as far as things that don't involve death, this was the worst thing I've ever experienced. And so needless to say, it got me out of the game. I mean, I was out. I was like, what am I going to do? I can't start all over again. I had so many tools. I had the dream workshop. I mean, all of those 3 horsepower, 2 horsepower tools, those are stuff that a lot of woodworkers will never have the chance to get. I mean, the only reason I had them was because I did it professionally. I mean, I still think if I was just doing this as a hobby, I still wouldn't have had those tools to this day. But it was the worst thing that you could ever have as a woodworker, to lose all of that all in one shot. It's just gone. What are you going to do? If you can think of it, I had it. When it comes to woodworking, I had a shaper with all the different shaper bits for making doors and all that kind of stuff. I had router tables. I mean, just name it. I had it. SATA spray guns, the best in the business. I had like 3 of them. I mean, it was an ungodly amount of stuff. I even had, there's a thing called a stripping table, which is a gigantic recessed table with a drain in it that you put a piece of furniture in that big tray. It's like a big tray on legs. You put it, it's 8 feet by 4 feet. You put the furniture in there and you run stripper over it, and the everything goes down the drain back into the bucket and recirculates through the system. It was an amazing system for stripping furniture really, really fast. That was sitting, because I didn't have room for it inside the shop, sitting outside of the shop. They took that too. I had a John Deere garden tractor that belonged to my father when my mom sold the house that her and him had together, and she bought a small house for herself. I bought that lawnmower from her, John Deere garden tractor. I got a picture of my dad on that tractor. That was gone. Our oldest son had a go-kart that was back there behind the garage. That everything was gone. And it wasn't just tools. It was furniture. It was personal belongings of mine that were just stored in there. I mean, it was everything. How do you recover from something like that? Because of that, woodworking just left my brain. It was just over, except for the woodworking that I would do for my job. I would go out to people's houses and fix scratches, dents, dings, things like that, glue up chairs, fix frames of recliners and stuff like that. I did that because that was my job. But as far as a hobby goes, it was over. I could not imagine a scenario where I got back into it. Did you leave the bench? Yeah, I did. Because what am I going to do? I mean, I don't know. It all felt so weird. After I had that phone conversation with Jim Horner, where I basically threatened to break his legs, I never went back ever again. And I couldn't. I mean, it was a police investigation at this point. So I don't know if Jim Horner ever got what he had coming to him. I hope he did. And I mean that exactly the way I said it. But, I have not seen him. King George is a small town. It's not a small town like I live in now, but it's a small town. Everybody knows each other. We lived in King George after that for another 11 years. I never saw him. Didn't run into him at the hardware store. Didn't run into him at Food Lion. I never saw him again. And it's probably a good thing, because like I said, that connection between a man and his tools, and I know a woman could have this too. I don't mean to say it that way. I'm just saying, for me personally, the connection that I had with those tools still affects me to this day. If he was to pull into my driveway right now, I'm afraid of the way I would react. I don't even live in Virginia anymore, so that will not happen. But if I was to run into him randomly, I'm afraid of what would happen. If I'm being honest, this was 15 years ago. He's probably gone from natural causes at this point. He was in horrible health. He was one of those guys that would walk from here to across the room and would be breathing heavy and his face would be red, and he was a mess. So, nature's probably taken its course with him, but I'm sorry to say this, people can criticize me for saying this. I have never hated a human being more than I hate that man. And I'll say it to his face. I'll say it to anybody's face. I'm not ashamed of it. My brother-in-law is a minister, and he would probably be upset with me for expressing it that way. But I think even he, when he sat down and thought about it, like, man, John had a lot of stuff. I'd probably be pretty mad too. I think he would understand. But yeah, I've never had a hatred for somebody like I did him. And so now things are a little bit different. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I am over it. Like, what can I do now? You know what I mean? Like, I can sit here and dwell on it. I can have these memories of that glorious 20-inch planer, 3 horsepower. I can think about that 3 horsepower table saw. How beautiful that thing was. 52-inch rip. Man. That joiner. Come on now. 8-inch joiner. Are you kidding me? Big old floor standing drill press that did not shake when you turned it on. And man, I think about that stuff. I have good memories. But the beautiful thing is those tools are memories of a dark time in my life. But this one right here, this photo that I showed you earlier, if you're watching and you were not watching earlier when I showed this, this is a rocking horse I made in like 2004 for my daughter. Her and I made it together, if you will. She helped me sand it. That rocking horse and all of the other stuff that I showed you was not made with all of those tools that were stolen. Although all of the tools that I made that with were stolen too, but I'm saying like, that is my fondest memory as a woodworker, was in that house in Stafford, Virginia, around the time that I made that rocking horse. And there is no better example of that little rocking horse still to this day bringing me unbelievable memories as the story that I'm about to tell you right now. This happened, and I swear to you, this was like 3 weeks ago that this happened with that rocking horse. I told you, my daughter was like 3 or 4 when I made that. And the reason why I made that was because I was in a store. They had one of those in there. She was rocking on it. And when I walked up, she said, "Daddy, look at me." And she was rocking, just working that thing. And that's what made me build that rocking horse. Well, a few weeks ago, my oldest daughter and her daughter were here at the house. She is the cutest little girl you've ever seen in your life. And I don't know what sparked it. Lisa probably did it. I don't know. But my granddaughter got on that rocking horse. Our daughter was in the other room. My granddaughter got on that rocking horse. She's 2. Her feet can't even touch the little footrest on it. And she starts rocking. And what happened? Our daughter comes in from the other room, just walks in the room, and she yells, "Mommy, look at me." I'm like, are you kidding me? Did that just happen? It was the exact same scenario that I experienced 22 years ago that made me make that rocking horse. That, ladies and gentlemen, that's what woodworking is all about. That's the memories that I have, and even new memories that are being created. That's the best memories I have as a woodworker. I'm not getting choked up. My throat is dry. I promise I'm not getting choked up. I'm not that guy, but that's what it's all about. And so now is the time to start making new memories. And it's difficult because, you know, I have limited tools right now. I want to renovate this house, but I also, my passion for woodworking is back. If you recall, the most recent video that I uploaded was building all of those cabinet doors for my kitchen. I also built the cabinets for in there. I've done a lot of work in that kitchen, and it has really brought that passion back. And it really makes me want a shop again. We're gonna break a little news here to you. And I don't even know that for sure I have won this fight yet, because Lisa's putting up a fight with me on it. But we have a long-term plan for our business. Not the money pit, but for our means of making a living, which is KG Tropicals, the YouTube channel, as well as our website, keepfishkeeping.com. We run our website right now out of our barn. We have a pre-1900 barn in our backyard that we are using as our warehouse right now. If you've ever ordered from our website, It all comes from out there. And my dream, I'm not saying this is a guaranteed plan to happen, but my dream is, as that business grows, we're going to have to move that into a larger building. Possibly a larger building built on our property. We've got room for it. Or it may be that we rent a warehouse somewhere. We don't know yet. We're not really ready to do that yet. We could, and it would help us, but it's not really required for it yet. For our business, our business is growing and everything's great, but it's, we don't have to do that yet. But the idea is when that does happen and we move our current warehouse or the contents of the warehouse into that new building, my dream is that that barn would then become my workshop. And when that happens, I will start, I'll probably be like 53 or 54 at the time. I'll start all over again. I'll start buying tools again, and start doing woodworking projects again. And that's when, I'm doing woodworking projects now, but I'll have a dedicated space for doing that then. And the part of the plan also is, again, if you know anything about me outside of this Money Pit channel, my wife also has a second YouTube channel, which is called Roots and Whiskers. She is a cat rescuer person. A lot of people in the chat here know. Again, long-term plan would be the building that we're currently using as our fish house. All of that would also move into the new building. And so that building would become her space to do the cat rescue. And I would have the barn. It could be flip-flopped, but if it works the way I want it to work, it would be the barn would be mine because it's perfectly set up for that, for a workshop. But I'll start all over again. I'll do all of that. And the very first thing, yikes for the catio. No, the catio will move too. It's no problem. Obviously, the first tool that I would purchase would be a table saw. And let me just tell you, when this happened, I would have said a man would understand this, but there is a whole lot of female woodworkers out there. Back in the day, I just didn't know any. I didn't know any female woodworkers. So when I say a man, as a man, it was a really important thing for me. Women can feel this way too. I'm not that weirdo that's like, oh, women should not be in a workshop. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, when I was coming up as a woodworker, you didn't hear of female woodworkers. One of the most special days of my life was when I lived in that house in Stafford. I had my workshop in my basement and we were doing pretty well. And I was finally in a position to where I could buy the dream tool for me, which was a 3 horsepower table saw. Cabinet saw, the kind that you can stand a nickel on and turn it on and the nickel doesn't fall over, that kind of a thing. My dream was always to have a Delta unisaw because that's what Norm used. Even though if you know anything about the New Yankee Workshop, that was not Norm's saw. That was not Norm's workshop. It belonged to Russell Morash. It was in Russell Morash's backyard. That he was the producer of the show and the owner of the show. Rest his soul. That building is still in the backyard of that property now. You can see it on Google Maps. It's still there. But it doesn't matter. That's what Norm used. And so the unisaw has always been the dream for me. However, unisaws are really expensive. And back when this story that I'm telling you now, unisaws were out of reach. They were like $3,500 in 2006. And they're still $3,500 now, but all of the other saws have kind of come up in price and they've all kind of met unisaw. So if I do buy a new saw, it'll be a unisaw. That's what I'll end up getting. I do like everything to match as far as brand goes. If you're going to get a Harvey saw, you also get a Harvey bandsaw and a Harvey this, and Laguna, whatever. But I do think that the table saw cannot match, and the table saw can be the unisaw. It's what I've always dreamt of. But back then, I still couldn't afford the Delta, but I could afford a jet. And I remember, I swear to you, I remember like it was yesterday when it happened. If you recall me in a story I told in one of my videos, I talked about my buddy Kenny Randall, who was also a woodworker. He taught me a lot of things. He was a professional cabinet maker, and he taught me a lot of tricks that made me a lot of money. So he was a good friend. I haven't seen him in 20 years, but a great guy. And he was my woodworking buddy. And him and I went to a woodworking show in Chantilly, Virginia. I don't remember the name of the show, but it was a convention basically for woodworkers. And I believe David Marks was like the special guest that year, but I didn't end up seeing him. David Marks, another hero of mine. Love that guy. I would love to cross paths with him someday. If I could meet two woodworkers in my lifetime, it would be Norm Abram, and Norm is in his 70s now. So we got to get on the ball here, John. I would love meeting Norm. To me would be like, when I worked as a police officer, I met a lot of celebrities, and I met a lot of A-listers. Bono, Nicolas Cage. I could go through the list. Denzel Washington, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I could go through the list of people that I met. I was never starstruck, ever. But boy, would I be starstruck if I met Norm. That would be such a huge thrill for me. And David Marks, the same thing. I believe he was supposed to be there at that show, but for whatever reason, I didn't see him. David Marks hosted a woodworking show on the DIY network called Woodworks. In case you're wondering, you can see episodes of that show on YouTube. But David Marks has been a guest on, I believe, the Wood Whisperers YouTube channel, which is really cool. But anyway, we went to that show, and I went there for the sole purpose of buying my table saw, and I did. And it was an incredibly special day for me. And the only way anybody could understand it is if you're a tool person. I'm not going to say tool guy. If you're a tool person and you understand how big of a deal that is to go and buy a 3 horsepower table saw, like, get out of here. That's the holy grail for a woodworker. To me, it is anyway. I mean, I don't know. If you watch a woodworking video, whether it's on John Malecki's channel or you watch New Yankee Workshop or Four Eyes Furniture, Whitworks, I don't care who it is. If you watch a woodworker on YouTube, you're going to see the table saw. It's used in almost every single project. I mean, it is the heart and soul of a workshop. So to go and finally buy a 3 horsepower saw to me was a really, really big deal. And I remember I bought it at the show. It was all on a pallet. They took a forklift. They put it in the back of my Toyota Tacoma, and I rode home. The truck was like that the whole way. And I was just as happy. The steering wheel was definitely not that wide, but I was the happiest guy ever to be bringing that saw home with Kenny. We got it home. Him and I set it up together. It was one of the best experiences of my life. And damn you, Jim Horner, for taking that away from me. That was a very special moment for me. It will be equally as special to do it again someday. Lisa has talked about, well, we should build you a garage and that can be your shop. And I'm like, oh, that's a dream. But we'll see. I don't know what's going to end up happening, but I do hope that at some point I will have a shop again. Right now I'm working out of a shed and it sucks. I hate it. It's my least favorite thing to do. That part of the process Like I've got to build my kitchen island. I'm hopefully going to start on it this weekend. I don't know. It might be next weekend. But the thing I'm dreading is I've got to spend an hour and a half pulling everything out, running extension cords, because there isn't even a plug out on my patio. That's just, I don't want to do that. And then at the end of the day, I got to put it all away. And it's just a huge problem. I hate that part of it. I dream of a day where I can just have stuff set up and I can just go use it. That would be an absolutely amazing thing. But we'll see, it is what it is. Again, if you want to know what I think I would do, if I was going to go and buy a table saw today, 3 horsepower, if I'm putting it in that barn, it would probably be a 36 inch. It would be a unisaw. That's what no, I would not buy a saw stop. I think saw stops are amazing. I think the technology is unbelievable. I just think they're too expensive. I mean, what are you going to do? And that's not what Norm used. So I would get a unisaw. Love that. And me and Perkins Brothers, I think would be the only unisaw users on YouTube. Everybody else has saw stops. And that's probably another reason why I don't want a saw stop, because everybody has them. Maybe they got them sent to them, as part of a promotion from Saw Stop. I'm sure they did, and good for them. That's great. I can honestly tell you, if I had a choice to make, and you're not going to believe me on this, but if I had a choice to make between buying a unisaw or receiving, it's not free, but receiving at no charge a saw stop, I think I'd still buy the unisaw. But I think I'd have to be in that position to actually know, because that'd be hard to turn down. Everything else is fair game, but the unisaw, that's the holy grail for me. It's since 1996, I've dreamt of having a unisaw. So that's why I would be doing it. And what are you going to do? We'll see what happens. Maybe someday. I don't know. But I hope I haven't depressed you too much in this story. Do you have a lathe yet? I used to. I don't have one now. I don't have anything now. Well, I shouldn't say that. I have mobile benchtop contractor grade stuff. Shown it in my videos so far. If you've watched a Money Pit video where I've been building things, you've basically seen everything I have. I don't have a whole lot right now because I don't have the space to put it all, but a lathe was part of what got stolen from me. I did lose most of my woodworking stuff though. Oh, wait a minute. What did Jay say? Wow, Aquatic News Network. You've been busy on this chat, haven't you? Never get in a hurry with woodworking, folks. You cut fingers off if you're in a hurry as a woodworker. Perkins Brothers has a real good, another depressing story about that. Unisaw or another 360 gallon aquarium. I've already got the 360, so it would be a unisaw. And I would stick it, I don't know where I'd put it, but I want this $5 bill hanging from the wall of the new workshop. Thank you for that, Joe. Second one of the day. We'll see. I got to get the shop first, but table saw is what cut my hand off. What? Still use them. Best tool a builder could have. You cut your hand off? What? An old 40s table saw was my own fault. No guard. I was 16 and in a hurry, not the tool's fault. Aquatic News Network, I've seen a couple of your videos because you mentioned me in a couple of your videos. Thank you for that. Do you only have one hand? I didn't know that. Or were they able to put it back on? This conversation's getting weird. If you lost it completely, I'm very sorry to hear that. Okay, wait a minute. Take it from a guy that cut off his hand with a table saw and then spent the next 2 years having over a dozen reconstructive and plastic surgeries. Get the stop. Yeah, okay. I get it. I understand why you were talking about that now. Um, that is a good case for saw stop. I am not saying that saw stop would have saved your hand, and I get it. I know that, and I think their technology is amazing. I don't know. I just don't want to be like everybody else. With your talent, John, you deserve a full professional wood shop, and I will be here to see it. Well, that's amazing, Doxy Diane. Hopefully someday you do get to see it. We'll have to see, but we got the building. We just got it full of stuff right now, and the stuff that it's full of, well, it pays the bills for us. So it's kind of important. But like I said, we've looked into building a building here. I go back and forth on that because having a building built is very expensive. Yes, it would generate income for us because it's part of our business. But I look at resale value. I look at the fact that Lisa and I don't have 250 grand to build a building. So we would end up having to finance it. It would be a business expense, and it's fine. It's part of being in business. No big deal. Well, I mean, it would suck to pay that payment every month, but you know what I'm saying. It's better than going and renting something. And even if we were to finance a new building, the payments on that would be less than rent somewhere. So there's that. But my fear is, I'm going to be 51 next month. My dad dropped at 54. I think about these things. I know it's morbid, but my fear is we all know Lisa is going to way outlive me. But something happens to us or something happens to me, and then Lisa's in a position where she needs to sell this house, and we got this big old loan on that building that would basically eat up whatever equity she had, and she would end up getting screwed. And so that scares me. Sorry, Lisa, I love you, but a worst case scenario would be something happens to both of us, and then it's the kid's problem. That scares me a little bit too. I don't know. I mean, one way or another, doesn't really matter. The results are the same. That business is growing, and it's going to grow out of the building that it's in right now. And when it does, it's going to have to go somewhere, and that's going to free up that barn. And then Lisa and I will fight over it. We'll fight over who gets that to put woodworking tools in or fill with cats. Stay tuned to see who wins that fight. They were able to save all but my left ring finger. They used bits and parts of different parts of my body and arteries from different parts of the body to reconstruct everything. Oh, that sounds like an absolute nightmare. I have about 30% function. Whoop, didn't mean to make this X-rated. Sorry about that. Of my left hand, my thumb and pinky are operational. My first and middle finger don't extend all the way. No ring finger. That is tragic. But that is a story that I've heard way too many times, and not all with table saws. And that's kind of my thing. One of the reasons why I'm like, I know somebody who cut their thumb off on a bandsaw. I know of somebody who lost a finger on a joiner. I don't know the Perkins brothers. It's one of my favorite YouTube channels. I love that channel. They're also based in North Carolina. Jamie lost practically his whole hand, his whole left hand on a joiner, not a table saw. He's got a Darth Vader hand now, which is really cool. My friend Kenny Randall, the one I've talked about many times, he showed up to my shop one day like this, and a big old bandage covering his whole hand. What the hell happened to you? It was a CNC machine. CNC machines are not brand new. They've been around for a long time. He was changing a bit in the CNC machine, and somehow it turned on and just ripped his hand to shreds. He didn't lose it. He's fine now, but he was in real bad shape for a while. Another big culprit of cutting hands is choking and handsaw guard with no board, so the guard stays up. Bad idea, folks. Yeah, that's what happened to Jamie from the Perkins brothers. The guard was disengaged. He did a live stream or a podcast very recently where he went through the story in great detail, and it was horrific. The guard on the joiner was disengaged, and that's a nightmare of a story. I mean, horrifying. And I love to say, well, I pay very close attention. I'm always very, on point with that kind of stuff. No, I don't use blade guards on table saws because, I'm a stupid person. But accidents do happen. It's scary. I'm so scared of accidents that I'm overly precautious. Build a 3-car garage for a workspace. I would love to. And that's what Lisa's talked about doing. That would increase our home's value. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what's going to end up happening. None of it is going to happen right now. We are talking down the road. These kind of things would happen. I have no idea when. Stay tuned to find out. But the Money Pit channel is all about me renovating this house. Well, there's 2 other buildings on this property that also need quite a bit of work. So if this long-term plan comes to fruition at some point, I'd be able to show that stuff too. And then I'd be able to start doing woodworking projects in the barn as part of the Money Pit channel. And it would all work out. It would all be great. We just have to get there first. But y'all coming in, hanging out with me during live streams here on this channel, stuff like that. People becoming channel members, Finsanity did today. All that stuff helps a great deal. I'm not begging anybody for anything, but that's the kind of stuff that helps us progress this. Now, again, everything from KG Tropicals is completely detached from this. So, what happens with KG Tropicals will impact the Money Pit if, we end up moving into the barn. But none of that, like if I make $10 on the Money Pit channel, that's not going to go towards KG Tropicals. That's, Money Pit is its own thing. And there you go. I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point. But anyway, waking up during surgery. Whoa. That's everyone's worst nightmare. Everyone's first nightmare. I traumatized my poor mom acting as if I didn't know I lost my finger and got emotional about it, then laughed about, oh, that's funny. Hey, listen, you gotta be able to joke about stuff. I don't have any horrific stories like that to joke about, but my story today was horrific enough, I think. Hopefully I don't get my channel deleted by YouTube for the threats that I said. Those were real things. Those happened. Nothing ended up happening from those things. I'm actually very glad about that. But hopefully they don't come down on me for that. I was just joking. None of that was real. I was making it all up. I'm like Sherry Papini. I just made it all up and then blame everybody else. But anyway, this was a lot of fun going on this trip down memory lane, even though it is not the best story to talk about. But what do we think about, let's talk about this for a second. What do we think about for next week's topic? Because I'll prepare for it. Unfortunately, I had a lot of ideas and they kind of all morphed into this one stream. I had my woodworking journey, my furniture repair journey, and the story of my tools, the most tragic woodworking story ever told. All 3 of those basically just got combined into one long story here. So the other ideas that I have right now are what needs to be done with my money pit. What are the things that are looming over me right now that need to be done? And that could kind of morph or blend in with the story of this house. I talked about that last week, about how that could be a topic for a future live stream. If you're interested in the history of my house, we could do those together. That would be a lot of fun. And then another topic that I thought about, which would be really cool, is the topic of brand loyalty. This is something I just noted down just the other day. It's because when you watch YouTube, whether it's woodworking YouTube or DIY YouTube, home renovation type stuff, you always end up seeing people that are stuck to particular brands. I know why that is. I mean, you don't have to be a private investigator to know why that is. I mean, the reason why Mr. Build It uses all Ryobi tools is because they're paying him, folks, and they should. It's a big channel. I mean, you think he would go to the store and buy all Ryobi stuff? I'm not saying Ryobi stuff is bad, but this is a guy that makes a living with tools. You think he's going to go to Home Depot and buy all Ryobi? I bet you he wouldn't. But he's got a partnership with Ryobi. Good for him. There's a lot of YouTube channels that have, deals with, like Bourbon Moth has Powermatic. That's the holy grail. That's a win-win right there. Good grief. But that guy deserves it. He's got a huge channel that gets millions and millions and millions of views. So I think there is some bought and paid for brand loyalty. But for me, I think I kind of simplify things. I don't have any particular brand loyalty. So I think I'm probably a good case to talk about that kind of a topic. But, we'll see. I still have my Makita miter saw from years ago. Makita makes great stuff. I've got a couple of Makita tools myself. I mean, I should save this for that episode, but I got a lot of DeWalt right now. If all of my mobile tools got stolen and I had to start over again, I'd probably buy all Milwaukee. I'm just saying. I love both brands, but I've had DeWalt for 20 years. I'd probably transition over to Milwaukee. I think they make some amazing stuff. I needed a tool the other day from my neighbor. I went over and borrowed it. Guess what it was? It was a Milwaukee, and guess what it did? It worked perfectly. My DeWalt tool couldn't handle it. But brand loyalty, I think a lot of people are stuck on, and it's not like Indian versus Harley Davidson. I mean, there are people that are hardcore with this brand loyalty stuff. I don't know. I think it could be fun. But anyway, I think what we'll do next week is we'll go over the list of things that I have to do to this house, some of which are emergency situations. Some of them are just things that I'd like to do. And one of them is kind of a two-part project that would probably cost somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, $75,000 to $100,000. Needless to say, it ain't going to happen anytime soon, if it ever happens. But we'll see. This has been a lot of fun. My throat hurts now from talking for 2 hours and 19 minutes straight. But I appreciate you hanging out with me on this journey. It was a lot of fun. If you are here from KG Tropicals, don't forget to join us tomorrow night for the Thursday night live stream on the KG Tropicals channel. I don't know what we're going to talk about over there either, but we'll have a lot of fun. Thank you to the channel members that signed up today. Thank you for all the super chats and all that kind of stuff. That is a real thrill. I'm only used to that happening with KG Tropicals, so it's neat to see that kind of thing happening here. But I appreciate the support very much. Floor refinishing video in the works, should be up this weekend on this channel. one of the most miserable experiences of my life. So be ready for that. It's more miserable than watching season 2 of The Last of Us. I promise you that. The video's not going to be miserable, but the experience of doing that job was a nightmare. So if you want to see that, that's coming up this weekend. Thank you so much. I have to pee. I'll see you next week. Bye.